We got a Monday night game tonight. Dallas Cowboys versus the Cincinnati Bengals. We're going to go over every player in this game. Starts, benches, guys we're gambling with. We're going over the matchup to see how fantasy points could be scored to help you set your lineups. We don't really tell you who to start, but we kind of give you the gauge to help you play with your gut when it comes with these decisions. But I know what you need to do because you already got your lineups created. You need to drop what you need in the comments below. We'll drop the blue hat emoji on you to give you that rally cap to help you push forward to win your matchup. Help somebody else out with that. Let's get that juju spread around. But before you dig in, you need to click that subscribe button because we're going to go deep on the waiver wire this week. Tomorrow, running backs and wide receivers. Wednesday, we're hitting it again. We're doing deep dives on the waiver wire players, multiple videos on the trending guys. And on top of that, like this, we're using these videos to help you set your lineups. Click that button. Stop missing out. We got to look at this matchup, though. Cowboys, Bengals. We got a 49.5 over-under. Vegas is saying this is going to be a high-scoring game, that there's a high probability that fantasy points will be scored in bunches in this game. We're not looking at the over. We're not looking at the under. We're saying that Vegas is stating that we're going to see a lot of scoring in this game. Even if it's the under, it should be a fair amount of scoring. And with that scoring, yards have to be accumulated, points have to be scored. Guys got to do that. So that means fantasy points have to be incorporated with that. So we're looking at these two teams. These two teams do not play each other enough to get a recent history on. We do look at the weather, though. Looks like 35 degrees, partly cloudy. That's per odds chart. That could be changed. Of course, you need to look into that. But 4% participation. Just look into that prior to the game because that stuff changes. So you don't trust weathermen. I don't think you trust the betting site. So just look into that. 49.5 over under. Spread is okay. Enough where fantasy points could go either way. Looking at the quarterbacks, I think a lot of you are looking at Joe Burrow as a start due to the over under here. And I think he's going to be like a fringe QB1 when it comes to rankings going into this week. More likely you got him slotted in. It's not like you're thinking about putting Cooper Rush over him. I'm not saying that he won't score more than him. Cooper Rush is a fun lottery ticket for this week due to the over-under, due to CeeDee Lamb playing, due to everything involved, due to the Bengals, who can be explosive at times, might be able to push the pace here in this game. This one could be fun. The Cowboys can also make games nasty as well. That being said, I think if you're looking at Joe Burrow, you already made your decision. Cooper Rush, most people are starting him in daily fantasy football because he's cheaper and you can put in higher priced players into your lineup. And if you're starting him, bigger leagues more than likely, 2 QB leagues. And Rico Dowdle, looking at the rankings going in this week from other sites, a lot of people had him as a back-end RB1, high-end RB2. This is a good matchup for him. He's been getting good volume as well. And on top of that, 4.5 yards per carry. But against the Bengals, their last 3 games, they're 52.8% above league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to running backs. Najee Harris went off for 24.9. J.K. Dobbins went off for 18.9. And Derrick Henry, 14.1. On top of that, they only let one running back bust, the Zamir White and the Raiders. So the Raiders are the only running backs that busted. But you got a 10 spot from Chubb against them. Chubb's been up and down this season coming back from that injury. Plus, it's the Browns. That's kind of a low point. However, they'll break. They'll break a fair bit to the running backs. Najee over 20. Tracy over 20. Hubbard over 20. Stevenson over 20. And they're bending too on a good clip. If they ain't breaking, they're bending. I think Rico Dowdle is fairly safe. I don't see him getting under 10 unless something happens with the game script. Unless that game script breaks. I feel like he's going to get a fair amount of touches, a fair enough workload to where he can at least bend against the defense. How can he break and blow up? Multiple touchdowns, breaking off a long run. There's potential with that. They've only broken 4 times this season. Odds are he gets you around that 12 to 13 point range. And the odds of him scoring less than 10 is not very likely because they're not really holding running backs to that. So the game script has to break a certain way for that to happen, for the game to be extra slow, and for him not getting the touches to be meaningful. He has been looking good, explosive, For Rico Dowdle, he's been looking solid. This has been a good year for him. 3 RB1 weeks. We're actually on a little hot streak right now. 2 good games back to back. Not many terribly low games. And when he's on the low, it's like 8 to 9 fantasy points. That's not too horrible. That's only a little ways away from 12 if you look at it that way. Rico Dowdle has some upside in this game if we can cross the goal line and if we can break off that long run. CeeDee Lamb's in. Brandin Cooks is back. The Cowboys passing offense, you're not loving it. And then CeeDee Lamb's 2 wide receiver 1 weeks on the season. Steady wide receiver 2, 16.7 points per game. Handful of down weeks on the season. CeeDee Lamb's okay, should be steady, should get targets. And they'll bend the wide receivers. They don't break too often, but they'll bend the wide receivers. Expect him to get you a 10 spot on the easy. Probably pushing around 12 to 15. The odds of him blowing up is if he breaks free on a target and houses it. Gets a couple touchdowns, gets that touchdown, whatever it is. We got to break free. We got to do that. There's a chance for that. They will break the wide receivers. More than likely, they'll bend a little bit to CeeDee Lamb. And on the low end, I don't see him getting you like 3 to 5 points. I see him comfortably getting you a 10 spot on the low and then bending somewhere around 15, 18, 12, 15, 18, something like that. Brandin Cooks is a lottery ticket due to the volume of targets and getting those air yards. If we can connect on one of those deep targets against the Bengals defense, which is a high probability because they're above average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to wide receivers, that could potentially happen. And now you're looking at Cooper Rush. Now that we're thinking about this and we're looking more into this game, he's a good lottery ticket dart throw in daily fantasy football because he's going to be cheap. And we got a matchup here with a high over-under and the game script's being pushed. And we got wide receivers that are getting deep downfield. And this team is comfortably bending to wide receivers on the weekly. I expect them to bend to CeeDee Lamb. And then Brandin Cooks is going to be a good dart throw. All the other wide receivers like a Jalen Tolbert, you're watching them. Not many fantasy gamers, traditional 12 or 10-man leagues, are starting Jalen Tolbert. And a few are starting Brandin Cooks. When I say few, obviously it's millions, but a lower percentage for Brandin Cooks. And when I say that, I'm not giving you start set advice. I'm just trying to guess the market for you. Jake Ferguson is back. He'll be back on the field. And the Bengals bend to tight ends, and one of the few defenses in the league that has been consistent since like week 7. Bending and breaking the tight ends, that is very encouraging. David Njoku, Brock Bowers, Mark Andrews, Will Dissly, Pat Freiermuth all did well against him. And he's going to get opportunities around the red zone. He's going to get targets, a highly targeted tight end, 17% target share is very good for a tight end. You're looking at the ADOT massively low. We got to rack up targets, and we got to get in the red zone. He's looking good for this week. However, tight ends are highly volatile. We got 4 tight end ones on the season, 4 double-digit games on the season. Tight ends are still highly volatile, even in good situations. This is a good situation to make that bet. Still a gamble, though, but it's a good situation. Now we're looking at the Bengals here. We're looking at Chase Brown, and he's been hot. 4 straight RB1 weeks. Should be getting workload. He's been getting a lot of touches. You're looking at what Dallas has been doing to running backs. And running backs have been eating. They've shut down 4 running backs this year. 4 backfields have been shut down by the Dallas Cowboys, but they will break a lot the running backs. When they're broken, they do not fix. They do not fix. You got to throw that toy in the trash can. You cannot glue it back together. That is what that's saying here. When they break, they break. They don't bend too often. They can shut down running backs and backfields. However, there's a high probability that they're going to bend a little bit and they're going to break. If Chase Brown's getting the volume, he's running hot, there's a high probability he's going to get you that 19 to 25 spot that he's been doing these last 4 weeks. There is a chance if they figure out this puzzle, they make this game nasty, that he busts on you. There is a chance for that. They've done that before. There's a chance of that happening. However, he's on a hot one right now. And they more than likely bend and break the running backs. And when they break hard. Looking at these wide receivers, I want to know if anybody's benching Jamar Chase, if that's even a thing right now. He is a standard wide receiver 1. Even when he busts, you just eat it as a bad beat. When you look at this matchup, Dallas is about league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. They'll break a little bit. They'll break the good wide receivers. They bend a lot, and they rarely shut down wide receivers. The game's got to be nasty. The fact that you got T. Higgins on the other side of him, soaking up targets and getting the deep ball, it's going to be hard for them to shut this offense down. I look for this offense to do well. It should be doing well. If you played this game 100 times, these two wide receivers will do very well getting targets, at least from a football standpoint, shaking things up and making things nasty for that Dallas defense. Fantasy standpoint, T. Higgins could be volatile. Volatility with the upside very high, downside very low, and a guy that when you're looking at what he's doing on the field, we got 3 wide receiver 1 weeks, him missing a bunch of games, playing hurt in a bunch of games, still being able to do that. You just throw him in your lineup, you just pray to the fantasy gods it's a T. Higgins moment. And Jamar Chase, I don't think I need to say much about that. The ancillary wide receivers, the odds for like a Yoshi or Jermaine Burton or something like that turning up on us, a little bit better due to it being a high over-under, but you're not going to make that bet unless you're in deep tournaments for daily fantasy football. Mike Gesicki will light your house on fire or heat your home because he's that type of player. He's up and down, but he gets a lot of targets. He gets a lot of volume, especially for the tight end spot. He needs to get that touchdown to hit. Dallas about league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to tight ends. They're about league average when it comes to allowing fantasy points to wide receivers. Looking at that at a full spectrum here. We need to get that goal line look. We need to get that touchdown. We need to score for you to hit in fantasy football with Mike Gesicki. The volume of targets, the high over-under, makes it likely, makes the odds better, but it's still a gamble to make. That's the matchup in a nutshell. Make sure to drop what you need in the comments below so we can drop you that juju with the Rally Cats. I want to thank you for watching. Catch you on the next video.